Hey loves, it's Britt, and in this video I'm talking about Moon opposite to Mercury in Synastry. I'm excited. Moon Mercury aspects are very funny, and they're more lighthearted than they seem, even though we have two very differing energies here. We have the emotional, instinctual reactions of Moon, and their, inner child and upbringing energy, the Moon, the fourth house energy, right? Mixing or meeting with Mercury, which is the logical mind and how we think and communicate. Um, but they just end up being funny. So this one I've had a lot of experience with, and I'll talk a bit about that. So when the moon is opposite to Mercury in Synastry, the moon person feels like the Mercury person is like this delightful, intelligent person who, sees the world in a very different way. But at the same time, it's like the moon person feels this attraction that, like, the Mercury person can expand them, or the Mercury person is intelligent, or holding some information that could really help them be more emotionally fulfilled. And the Mercury person feels like the moon person is sometimes they feel like they're quite emotional, or they're a bit of a dreamer, or they're a bit ungrounded in some cases, but they're very fun to talk to, and they're very open to what the Mercury person has to say usually. And so it's a very delightful contact, actually. And there's some textbooks or the astrology books that'll say this is a very difficult contact. It can be, but it's also very fun. So it does kind of depend a lot on what signs this is taking place in. Because certain signs are going to handle this opposition better than other signs. And there does tend to be that overwhelming theme of, like, the Mercury person feeling like the moon person is kind of emotional, or maybe very reactive, or a little bit of, yeah, like lacking in, pragmatic energy that the Mercury person feels that they are. So there can end up being a bit of, like, the Mercury person guiding the moon person into more grounded, or more realistic avenues that can be a potential. And they might end up resenting that if they really feel like the moon person is just too out there, and like they're always having to provide guidance or grounding to them. They might end up resenting that. um, but usually, the moon person is just gonna, or sorry, the Mercury person is just gonna feel like the moon person is like this delightful companion. They want to do things together. They tend to communicate a lot with this opposition. I've actually said this about all moon Mercury aspects, that the level of communication is so high that we're talking all day. This is the same with the opposition. It's like we're talking all day. We're sending each other memes. We're, sharing everything. Especially the Mercury person is going to be like, okay, I just did this, I just did that, and I'm doing this. And then the moon person is going to be sharing their feelings. So this is kind of the difference, right? So the Mercury person is just kind of sharing a more general idea of what they're doing during the day, and, maybe their ideas about, current things that are affecting their mind. And then the moon person is coming out and being like, this is what I feel, and this is what I'm feeling today, and this is what happened in my childhood, and this is what my heart is saying. And, like, so there is conflict, because sometimes Mercury can think, I'm just trying to talk about my day, I'm not trying to talk about all of these feelings, right? But at the same time, they can find it interesting, and they can find it kind of like, oh, okay, well, let's talk about your feelings then, moon. um, and the moon person does feel very open to share with the Mercury person their feelings, but they might sometimes feel that the Mercury person is too much offering a solution, or too much, in the mind, when they're coming from their heart. So that can be the difficulty here. Now, usually, though, it just creates a lot of communication, a lot of buzzing energy, a lot of excitement, and it is a little bit like a almost like a friendship or a sibling level of sharing. And if the moon person can not be disheartened when the Mercury person responds intellectually or logically to what they are sharing, this can be a really good relationship for a lot of exchange and a lot of realization. And the moon person can actually really get a sense that the Mercury person can help fulfill their emotional needs on a deep level, because the Mercury person is able to see things from the exact perspective that the moon person needs, because that's something, about the opposition aspect, is that we both inherently contain what the other lacks. And so there's this potential for balance. There's this potential for harmony. There's this potential for getting what we want. So when our moon is opposing someone's whatever, we do, even though we're different and we sense that they're different than us, we do also sense that, oh, but maybe this person could really be what I need emotionally, right? And so there is this sense of like meeting the dream person, even if in reality what ends up happening is that the Mercury person can seem cold or, not as emotionally invested. Um, it can still show that, on some deep level, we do feel like we might have found our true companion. And now you'd have to look at the Mercury person's moon and see if their moon is also being aspected similarly, because that's one thing you can see in synastry. If like one person's moon is like totally aspected a whole bunch and then the other person's moon isn't, it's like, okay, this person is in their feelings and the other person isn't so much, right? So you want to look at that in the reverse overlay if the other person's moon is involved, because this one aspect won't show that. But just as far as this aspect, the Mercury person does feel like the moon person is all ears, and like they can share, and even they can sense that like the moon person kind of looks up to them or idolizes their mind and wants to hear more. And like they can feel like the moon person is this adoring pupil. And that can feel very good, and that can make the Mercury person communicate a lot more to the moon person than anyone else. So they can end up having a lot of exchanges. They might, because this is an opposition aspect, be coming from very different backgrounds. Like the moon person's upbringing may be contrary to how the Mercury person thinks about things. So we can definitely see some conflicts in ideas and in our way of going about things. So there definitely can be that differences in ideas, differences in upbringings, but usually the differences are more harmonious in some cases. But you'd have to look at the whole charts, you'd have to look at everything. It could even be that the Mercury person is somehow far away, or like there's some sort of distance here with the relationship that can make the moon person feel like they're a bit out of reach even with this opposition. But if the rest of the synastry is showing strong compatibility, they can want to, go the distance with each other, because it's a really fun one. It is very fun to have this contact in synastry. And yeah, it's a buzzing energy though. It can actually be like the conjunction, quite a high level of mental energy, a lot of talking, so much talking that time goes by and you've, wasted a whole day, or you've stayed up till 3 a.m. and it's just like a lot of buzzing energy that might need to be grounded. But it's usually very fun. So I've had this where, yeah, my Mercury in Gemini is opposing someone's moon in Sagittarius. Now, that tends to be a pretty fun contact. Gemini and Sagittarius are, one of the oppositions that kind of like each other. They're both mutable. They're both kind of open-minded, right? Although definitely my Mercury and Gemini opposing someone's moon, I can feel like they're a little bit out there, or a little bit like a dreamer, and like, well, here's some advice on how to like actually achieve some of those dreams, Mr. Moon Sagittarius person. So that that's a little bit of the vibe, although it's very fun. And then the other way I've had it, so my moon is in Leo, and so with Mercury and Aquarius people, but I also have my moon conjunct to Mars in Leo. So whenever someone's Mercury in Aquarius is opposite my moon, it's also opposite my Mars. That's a little bit more um, feisty there. But usually with that, I do feel like I respect their intelligence a lot. I feel like Mercury in Aquarius is, one of the best placements to have Mercury. It's exalted. I love communicating with them. Although sometimes, the way that they see things is so impersonal that it's hurt my ego, right? That moon in Leo, it's like, can you just give me a little more attention and praise and stop thinking about, all these other people and just focus on me? That's kind of the dynamic, how I've seen it both ways. But yeah, definitely a lot of respect for their mind. And even though they're offering a different perspective, I can see how it's actually very much bringing me like wholeness that I seek. So, anyways, that's just a little side note, my personal experience with this aspect. And yeah, I'd love to know your experience of it. Was it like this? Was it not like this? Let me know in the comments, you guys. And thank you so much for watching. Keep your requests coming, and we'll talk soon. Bye.